if you were to use traditional stick frame, that would have taken about 26 months to get into occupancy.
Yep.
With what we're doing with our box pods, it takes 9 months. So you're saving a considerable amount of time with financing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm Toni Singh.
And I'm Jenny Woon.
And we have Michele Tung, founder and CEO of homeD Modular, with us on the podcast today, joining virtually. Hi, Michele. How are you?
Hi, Jenny and Toni. Very nice to meet you.
Hi there.
So, Michele, modular homes and prefab have been a really exciting topic in the news and in practice these days. Why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about your company that you guys founded? I think it was around COVID that you started the company, what you guys do and why it was important to you.
Okay. So we started the company homeD. So the D stands for dignity. It was really a reaction to what we were seeing in our community. During the height of COVID, there were a lot of, there was an increasing number of people that were becoming homeless. And so a very old friend of mine from over 20 years ago, he is an architect in Hong Kong. And what he was seeing in his 20 years of experience building commercial skyscrapers, in Dubai, Mumbai, Hong Kong, he was saying that there was a shift to modular. And the reason is because when you build a modular, when you get to the end of the life cycle of the home or the building, it's very easy to deconstruct when it is modular.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was on one of his sites in Mumbai, he saw people living in precast concrete water pipes.
Wow.
And so this was protecting them from the elements, the sun, the rain. It was very safe. And so he took this idea of a water pipe, a precast concrete water pipe, and thought about, wow, this is such an amazing idea. It's cheap, it's off the shelf, and we can quickly create homes out of them.
Yeah.
And so that's where the concept of an OPOD came, where it is a repurposed water pipe. We're not talking about like small ones. We're talking like 3-meter diameter ones, massive ones. And he made a plug and play type of home, with a kitchenette, with a bathroom and a bunk bed system. But then, of course, that is a smaller, option. So taking a precast concrete box culvert, we created the box pod. And that is, it's large, it's beautiful, plug and play again. And we took this concept here and saw if there was a need for it in Vancouver and if there was an interest, and there was. And so that's how homeD was created here in Vancouver. Okay,
so thank you for sharing that, because it sounds like obviously you and your husband have created the space in an area like Vancouver for this type of construction to exist. And I think it is perfect timing. I love that this is stemming from something that you noticed within your own community, which provided the motivation for it. So I guess there are still some people in the real estate industry that are a little bit, they might have preconceptions about what modular prefabricated home is and what type of homes that you guys can build or service, I want to say. So could you speak a little bit more on, does your company focus on a specific type of build in a certain area, or is it kind of created for everybody and everything in all different municipalities?
So homeD takes the concept of affordability, but what we don't do is we do not compromise on quality and looking at how it is sustainable for the environment. All of those things that, innovation and sustainability can be within an affordable format. And so our homes are not built like traditional stick frame homes that we see, around Vancouver and in Canada. We use an assembly system that is we can get up to lockup stage in one day. So
No
typically
way.
a home takes, some homes, like they take 45 days. Ours is one day we can get up to lockup stage. And our homes are high performance. So they are a zero carbon compliant home. And we make them in a factory space. So when you look at in terms of, typical builds where, you're building on site, you're going to have exposure to rain, slowdowns due to snow or certain environmental factors. For us, we produce in factory. So we have an ideal environment where we bring everything to our central manufacturing site and we produce these homes. So we are able to have a quality control process, unlike, traditional buildings. So we have various layers of, not only do we have a CSA 8277 certification, but then we also have our own layer of quality control where we are able to ensure that these homes, meet certain standards and beyond.
Are these your clients? Are they more you're working with the city, or are you directing them and producing them for the end user, or are you working with landowners who own the land and they're just buying these prefab builds in bulk, and then they're putting it on the land that they own?
So our mission of our company is really to target below market housing, affordable housing. So we work a lot with nonprofit organizations who are, serving individuals who may be experiencing homelessness, who may need some support services. And so we work with them in developing a project for their residents. And we do, for us, because we are thinking on a larger scale, looking at how to address the need for 3.5 million homes that are needed to reach affordability in our country, we are looking at scale. So we are selling minimum 30 units at a time.
Wow. And you mentioned at a larger scale. Share with us a little bit more about the circle of good.
Oh,
and your
yeah, we
concept
have
on
this
that.
concept. Yeah, the home concept, the circle of good, is that it's a recognition that as a team, as a company, we are only good at a certain area. So we know that we have our expertise in building modular homes, but we recognize that in order to fulfill our mission, or of making a dent in homelessness or those who are experiencing homelessness. And these are not necessarily, homelessness isn't just individuals just living on the street. These are people who cannot afford homes, right? It's an increasing problem. We're looking at not only providing a home, but what are the reasons that cause these situations? So that's for us, meaning that, we need to be supporting local businesses. So everything that we procure, when we manufacture, when we assemble, everything is local.
Okay.
And then the other one is that we have designed the home in such a way that it is so easy to put together, because we also do see the statistics that, there's going to be a shortage of workers, of 300,000 workers by 2030. So we've created this, very simple assembly process where we can train and employ individuals that don't necessarily have the skill, but if they have the right attitude, we are happy to take them on, train them, and make these homes together with them.
Michele, you said something very interesting and important. So we're both in industry, in the real estate industry, and Jenny often works with a lot of different developers as well. There is a shortage currently of construction workers and trades to facilitate the completion and development of these homes that are so greatly needed. And it's really been, there's that pent up demand for housing. So do you see in the future, can you see modular replacing trades people, or would you work aside them? So I guess it's a two-part question. One, do you see modular homes replacing builders and developers at a point in the near future? And two, would you see yourselves working alongside tradespeople as you're training them, or would that kind of not be as important in the industry as well?
it would have to be collaboration, working together. Absolutely. There is no exclusion of anyone. There's definitely a place for everyone. And so we can't be, it has to be together.
Has to be together.
So where are these homes
Yeah.
being assembled? You said that they're factory built. Are they local in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. They're local in Canada. So our homes have 37 major parts to them. And the assembly is, like I said, very easy to do. And so we almost have like an IKEA-like type of manual in terms of how we, can make our homes. So what's very interesting is when you look at what we've created here with the evolution of our product, the box pod, we have made this very much in line, in collaboration with our client, who is Illuminative Housing. And so listening to what they wanted and what they needed, where they saw there was a gap in the market, we've created, this box pod that I'm sitting in here right now. And so one of the areas that was noted was, in areas such as rural and remote communities on reservations, sometimes, it would be good to have that opportunity where we could actually have, on-site factories, like a pop-up factory.
Yeah.
So that is something that we can do. We can create these pop-up factories, a pop-up tent and make, 2 of these homes a week. Or we can even just, in our space here in Coquitlam, it's a very modest space. It's 3,000 square feet. But we can also, again, produce two a week. And then because of our very easy instruction manuals, we can outsource it very easily as well to get to that volume. So using other manufacturing facilities and resources to address the housing gap.
So 3,000 square feet is actually quite large for a lot of people. I don't know if you can say, but approximately what would be the cost involved in creating something like that? Because it sounds like you have amazing processes, and that's why this would work on a larger scale.
Yeah. So, for example, if we're doing like a pop-up tent, a tent itself is like $60,000 for like a prefab, like one that is customized.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't even need to go that far. So, for example, in a project that we are working on along the Sunshine Coast, the municipality has said, like, this is very interesting, that economic development piece. Why don't we give you an airport hangar? Right? So it doesn't have to be expensive. It's just really thinking out of the box and thinking, okay, these are, the requirements that we need for a factory setup. And what are the, resources or assets that are around there that we can be used to create these opportunities.
I know you said it takes, a day to assemble these, but actually on the back end, how long does it actually take for permitting and council approval, city public approval before one actually gets assembled?
Yeah, it takes a while. So this, it can take, as you know, it could take months, it could take years. But I am, EB has announced that, they are taking legislative steps to making, more of a playbook, a way of getting these processes, these acceptance of, standardized modular homes or, formats out faster. So if that does come into play, if municipalities like Burnaby, are truly looking at that, playbook model, then it'll be a lot faster. It'll cut it down by months.
How has your experience been with the city of Burnaby in terms of accepting, changing the zoning? Have they been very proactive on accepting the fact that these will come into their municipality? Because it is quite urban in Burnaby. And so where would you say that they're putting this? I can't even think of an area that would have this amount of space.
Yeah, so I have not worked directly with the city of Burnaby.
Okay.
So the way we work with our company is that we work with developers. And so the developers will work directly with municipalities. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm wondering right now as well, like I totally appreciate what you guys are working towards to eradicate, homelessness and the need for people to be safe in their homes. Is there in your guys' business plan, like, in some of the other areas you mentioned, like Dubai, maybe, where they're doing larger modular projects on a larger scale? Maybe it's like a building of 100 units or anything like that. Is that something that you guys are looking at as well right now in order to service higher density communities in the Lower Mainland?
Mhm.
Definitely. So for ours, our product is limited to 6 levels high. So we focus on projects that are 6 levels and lower. But definitely, when you look at modular, and when you look at solving issues around affordability, it is a when you get to scale, when you get to a certain number, then it's more cost effective. So you can use alternative methods of working. Not only with modular, so you could go with steel modular. So, for example, like Stack Modular is building one of the largest modular buildings in Canada, here in Vancouver. So those can be used. So there's different ways.
I could see that as being so important on a number of levels, right? So when you're looking at cost to construct, right? The timeliness of actually getting, once it's actually approved in terms of permitting, getting that done and having the homes on the market or available to people to live in. But also the financing involved in a regular high density project, right? With the traditional construction methods and everything. It just seems like this is so much of a cheaper, a less expensive, I should say, not cheaper, but less expensive option in terms of holding money and then waiting for everything to apply. But also sustainability. So the environmental impacts of all of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Are there
No, I
any
didn't.
incentives where the city's offering you to, I guess maybe the developer is the one that kind of handles all that incentive programs and taxation programs?
I just want to go back to the financing part.
Oh, sure.
That Tony. Yeah.
Sorry.
So one of the interesting things when you go modular is that it is faster, right? So if we were to do a comparison of a project, so for example, we're working right now on a 30-unit project in downtown Eastside. If you were to have done that with a traditional stick frame construction, so it's 2 buildings, 5 units wide, 3 units high, so it's total 30 units. If you were to use traditional stick frame, that would have taken about 26 months to get into occupancy.
Yep.
With what we're doing with our box pods, it takes 9 months. So you're saving a considerable amount of time with financing. So that's something to consider when looking at a traditional build versus modular buildings.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That's kind of what I meant, but maybe I didn't say it properly.
What's the square footage of these pods when you're installing them in East Van?
So they are 350 square feet. I know that sounds small, but it's actually, when you use the space, the dimensions properly, it's very comfortable. So I'm sitting in one right now. It is very comfortable. I would be very happy to live in one of these. Actually, it's very, very nice. But what is different about what we're doing at homeD is that we put these box pods together, and we can create multi-bedroom, multi-level homes. So we create multiples of the box pods to create larger living spaces.
Are there any other companies that are doing something similar? And if so, how do you differentiate yourself amongst that competition?
So if you look at the competition, many of them have come from a place of workforce housing. So you're looking at modules that are, 12 by 60 or 12 by 40.
Mhm.
Those are very 12 feet
Oh, no.
wide homes are very uncomfortable.
She is frozen. Well, there you go. Let's everyone back because
It froze.
you froze.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to asking the question, and you can answer it. So Michele, we, is there any competition that you're up against in this market? And if you are, what is your unique selling proposition, or what differentiates you from the rest of the competition?
So to answer that question, I think right now all of us are working together in terms of we're not, because the market is so large right now. But if we were to differentiate ourselves between, quote unquote, our competition, other modular, typically, typical modular comes from a place of workforce housing, which take on dimensions of 12 by 60 or 12 by 40. So very narrow types of homes. It's a little bit, I find uncomfortable. It's very narrow. And then you have some of the prefabs, which are, more individualized. So ours is different in the sense that we've created a module that is quite nimble in design. It is standardized, but it allows a diversity and a whole multitude of living spaces that are very individual to the end user.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. Well, actually, we'll go back to the question from before. Sorry. So I know that you had mentioned that you have been doing. I know that David Eby's been doing a lot of work on this as well, but it sounds like the municipalities are getting on board with, like, they really need to address the shortage in housing. So currently, in Metro Vancouver, are there any incentives offered by the municipalities to encourage modular homes for new construction, maybe even in a higher density scale? I'm not familiar with that, so that's why I'm asking the question.
There's some areas where we can put temporary modular housing. So we can put in, it's something from 5 to 10 years. You put in modules, and they can move to another place. So you see the land evolve into more denser areas as is needed. There are incentives for high performance homes. So you'll get rebates back or certain incentives to entice developers to think more sustainably.
Absolutely.
Where do you see your company heading in the next 3 to 5 years? What's your main focus right now?
Our main focus is really getting these homes out there and changing the mindset of people. I think that the industry is still very much stuck in an older way of thinking in terms of how things are built. We need to build more sustainably. We can't be producing homes that last certain shorter lifespan than they can, right? So our vision for our company is to, expand throughout the country, go down to North America, United States, and, go to Europe. So it is a global outlook that we're having.
You mentioned quality is the biggest difference, but also square footage and the width and the height and everything like that. Do you have a quantity, like a number that you want to produce or build?
So currently we already have, intentions to build over 1,000 homes over the next year or two. So, I mean, there is, I think there's a need for more than 500,000 homes here in BC that are needed. So, I mean, it's just to be part of that revolution with all the other builders out there.
I feel like a lot of what you're doing, so obviously you have an amazing product and you have a distinct vision. How much of what you're working on right now then includes advocacy work for, maybe justifying even to the old-fashioned mindset of the industry being more sustainable and the way that taking into account the actual way that we build the homes? Would you say that advocacy is a large part of what you're doing right now as well?
Yeah, I mean, the whole company is designed to be disruptive, so we aren't going to be changing guidelines that are, sometimes slowing us down, and talking to those officials, and explaining to them why, if you're trying to meet certain performance in terms of energy efficiency by 2030, using the traditional way of doing things is not going to get you there. If you want to be meeting targets on housing goals, the current way is not going to get you there. So we are very much advocating for change. It's a slow process, but it'll get there.
So, Michele, we know you're on a time crunch, and we just have one final question before you go. And you mentioned that you want to bring this across Canada, across the States. What city outside of BC would you want to build your homes and make a big change and a difference in the city?
I think it would be Portland and San Francisco, along the West Coast. I think you're seeing a definite need for housing in those areas. So it'd be going south along the West Coast.
Are you seeing the same kind of trend or pattern like Vancouver, or is it worse down there?
Yeah. I haven't been down to Portland or San Francisco recently, but when I was there is definitely a need for better housing, because if you're looking at the shift in terms of people experiencing homelessness, the West Coast is warmer. So there is, and we see it here in Vancouver, right? Where there is definitely a need for more homes, and a solution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michele. We know that your time is so important and you're helping out so many in need. So we really appreciate that you coming on for just a quick moment, just to share with us this exciting project that you're doing. And so much love and luck for you. It's such a huge battle working with such big cities and such a big issue in our society. And we really appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny and Toni.
Thank you.